Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is ache. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you're likely to hear ache used is to mean to suffer from a continuous dull pain in some place or part of your body. The thing that you might want to note here, right, is that this pain sort of continues. It might be in a large area. It might be in a small area of your body, but it is continuing. So it's different than a sharp pain where you might just feel a brief sensation of pain. A second way you might hear ache used is to mean to feel great sadness or compassion. Sometimes I have heard government leaders use this verb, particularly after a tragedy. They will say they are aching, they are feeling sadness after some terrible event, maybe a natural disaster. Unfortunately, in the United States, mass shootings come to mind as times where I've heard leaders use this description. You should know that ache is a regular verb. And I'm going to point out that for many of my students in the past, this has been sort of a difficult word. They see that CH, they're thinking ch, ch, that sound. But the CH here is making a K sound. Since we have this ending E, it's helped making this long vowel sound, ache. Okay. So to make the progressive form of this verb, we're going to drop the E and then add ing to form aching. Our past tense and participle forms are just going to add a D on the end. So we've got that ed ending there. Our base verb, ache, ends with a unvoiced K sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a T sound. Ached, ached. Okay. So now let's take a look at a couple phrasal verbs. So the main one you'll notice with ache is ache for. And ache for can have a couple different meanings. The first is very similar, if not exactly the same, as that second definition we looked at moments ago. So feeling great sadness for another person or another group of people. Another way to express this idea is to have empathy, right? So trying to understand what someone else is experiencing. So let's look at an example with this meaning in a sentence. My heart aches for the families who've lost a loved one due to COVID-19. Okay, so what I'm suggesting here is I feel sadness when I think about all the families who have lost, who've had loved ones pass away due to COVID-19. So there are unfortunately hundreds of thousands just in the United States, not to mention millions worldwide, who have suffered these great losses. A second way to use ache for is to mean to feel great desire for someone or something. Now, with this meaning, you might see it used more in like a romantic context. And that's kind of what's in my example sentence here. An example, he ached for his girlfriend while she was working overseas, right? So this, you might think of it a little stronger than like he just misses her. He might miss hugging her, kissing her, etc. Okay. Now let's continue using our verb of the day, ache, in a couple different verb tenses. Today we're going to talk about the present perfect and the future progressive or the future continuous. Let's start with the present perfect. We use this verb tense to talk about an action that started in the past and continues into the present. We also use it to describe something that occurred at an unknown point or points in the past. Sometimes you'll see grammar books call this the indefinite past tense. Okay? To make an affirmative present perfect sentence, what we're going to do is use a present form of have or has there. So if our subject is I, you, we, or they, we'll use have. If our subject is he, she, or it, we'll use has. And then we're going to use the participle form of the verb. Here, ache is a regular verb, so our participle is the same as the simple past tense. An example in the affirmative would be his back has ached all week. Right? So here's that idea of something started in the past, continues into the present. If you want to make a negative present perfect sentence, just insert not after have or has. You might hear some people use the contraction haven't or hasn't, and then again, you're going to see that participle. You can see that in the example, my feet haven't ached since I got new running shoes. Right? So here, someone might be suggesting, I'm not having this pain in my feet because I have new shoes. If you want to ask a yes or no question in the present perfect, start with have or has. Then you're going to have your subject and then the participle form of the verb. An example, have you ached to return to a more normal life? I've heard different statements and questions like this from friends and family who feel like this pandemic is never ending. And so, this kind of idea of have you been sad and have you desired to sort of get back to normal? So, what it was like before the pandemic or pre pandemic. Now, let's take a look at the future progressive. We use this verb tense to talk about an action that's going to be continuing or ongoing at a point in the future. To make this verb tense, we're going to use will, then be, and then the ing form of the verb. Let's take a look at an affirmative sentence. My whole body will be aching tomorrow after such a hard workout. Okay, so here someone is expecting to be sore, to have this pain. Maybe they've lifted more than what they're normally doing or normally experiencing during a workout. If you want to make a negative future progressive sentence, you're going to use will, not, be, and then the ing form of the verb. You might also hear people take will not and make a contraction, won't. You can see that word in my example sentence. I won't be aching after the procedure because I took some ibuprofen. So this happens frequently where people might have various checkups in a doctor's office or an outpatient center, so they're not going to stay in a hospital for a long time. And many times, if you take a little pain reliever like ibuprofen, then you won't have this continuing dull pain in the future. Finally, if you want to ask a yes or no question in the future progressive, start with will, then you're going to have your subject, followed by be, and then the ing form of the verb. Here's another example. Will the team be aching for a rematch? So remember, aching for desire. This is another way to ask, is this team going to want a rematch with maybe someone, maybe another team who defeated them in a previous game? So again, we're asking about future and if this feeling will be ongoing. Now, let's take a moment to look at some words that are related to our verb ache. And the first word we're going to look at has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation. It's just the noun form of the word. Okay. As a noun, ache can have a couple different meanings. One would tie back to our first definition of the verb. So ache as a noun can mean a continuous or prolonged. That idea kind of goes on and on. A prolonged dull pain in a part of one's body. An example of this meaning in a sentence might be, the ache in his arm has been getting worse, right? So this dull pain continues to get worse. A second way to use the noun ache is to describe some sort of intense and painful feeling or emotion. An example, he has had an ache in his heart since his wife passed away. Right? So we can certainly understand in this sentence, right? Someone would feel a real intense sadness, this painful feeling after losing their spouse. Now, there are many compound words that use ache, and we're going to take a look at a few of them. The first one you're probably familiar with is headache. This can have a couple different meanings. One is referring to that continuous pain in your head. So you might have heard someone say something like, I've had a headache all morning, right? So I've had this continuous pain in my head. But another way to use headache is to refer to something that is a problem or maybe something that causes you worry. So, an example of this assignment is such a headache. I am quite confident I've heard students say this in the past, maybe describing a project or something I've asked them to do. Many workers might also use a statement like this to describe a project that is difficult, challenging, or complex, and it is causing them some worry. Another related word is the noun toothache. And the thing to note here is when we use this noun, we are referring either to pain in one tooth or two or more teeth. And I've had a number of students in the past use the word teeth ache, right? Because they have pain in more than one. And they're like, hey, I know this is an irregular noun, but teeth ache isn't a word that's common. Someone I think will understand you if you said that. But to make sure we're avoiding any unkind people who might tease us, use toothache, whether it's one tooth or many teeth. So, an example of toothache in a sentence might be, have you talked to a dentist about your toothache? Another related word is the noun backache. So, here we're talking about the part of our body, our backs, and again, continuous pain. So I think this is, along with head and back, maybe some of our most frequent places in our bodies to have these dull pains or these continuing pains. An example of backache in a sentence, I can't lift that due to my ongoing backache. So if someone is saying, nope, if I try and lift that heavy object, it's just going to cause me more pain in my back. The last word I'm going to leave you with today is the noun stomachache. So many times this is being used to describe any sort of pain in one's belly or the area where we think our stomach is. An example of this, how do you deal with a stomachache, right? And I think there are different medicines out there that could help with that. When I was growing up, my family's way to handle a stomach ache was clear soda, clear carbonated beverages like Sprite or 7-Up, and kind of real plain crackers. Those two things were how my mom and my grandmothers had everyone deal with a stomach ache. I don't know that any of that is proven, but that's what I grew up and experienced. So thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.